Welcome to your audiobook summary of The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. What if the biggest obstacle between you and financial success isn't your spreadsheet, your salary, or even the stock market? What if it's your own mind? Welcome to The Psychology of Money, a book by Morgan Housel that has quietly changed the way millions of people think about wealth, greed, happiness, and the decisions that shape our financial lives forever. This is not a book about numbers. It is a book about behavior, because the way you behave with money matters far more than what you know about money. Let's begin. Lesson 1. No one is crazy. Here is something we rarely admit. Every person on this planet has a completely different experience with money. The child who grew up during the Great Depression sees the world differently than someone who entered the workforce during a roaring bull market. A person who watched their parents lose everything to debt will make different choices than someone who grew up in financial comfort. And here is the important part: neither of them is wrong. They are both acting rationally based on what they have lived through. Morgan Housel opens with a powerful idea. Your personal history with money shapes your beliefs about risk, reward, and what is even possible. The year you were born, the decade your parents lived through, the city you grew up in. These invisible forces quietly write the rules you live by. So before you judge someone else's financial choices, before you wonder why they save too little or spend too much or invest in something you think is foolish, remember this: to them, it makes complete sense based on everything they have experienced. Nobody is crazy. They are just working from a different playbook than you. Lesson 2. Luck and Risk. Bill Gates went to one of the very few high schools in the entire world that had a computer in 1968. He happened to be a genius who happened to attend that school. That is luck. His close friend, Kent Evans, had the same talent, the same drive, the same ambition, and died in a mountaineering accident before ever getting his shot. That is risk. Morgan Housel asks us to recognize something uncomfortable. Success is never purely the result of skill, and failure is never purely the result of bad decisions. Luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. Every financial outcome involves both, and we almost never give either of them enough credit. Why does this matter? Because when we study the most successful investors and entrepreneurs in history, we tend to copy their strategies without accounting for the extraordinary luck baked into their story. And when we experience failure, we beat ourselves up for decisions that were actually quite reasonable, but simply landed on the wrong side of chance. The lesson is not to become passive. The lesson is humility. Be careful about who you admire and why, and be careful about how hard you judge yourself when things do not go to plan. Lesson 3. Never enough. Rajat Gupta was born in poverty in Calcutta. He climbed to become the CEO of McKinsey. He was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He had homes, influence, access to the most powerful people on earth. And then he threw it all away, trading on insider information, trying to become a billionaire, and ended up in federal prison. The question Morgan Housel asks is a haunting one. What was missing? Why was hundreds of millions of dollars not enough? The answer is that he had no sense of enough. And without that, without an internal ceiling that says, this is sufficient, this is good, I am satisfied, no amount of money will ever feel like enough. This is one of the most dangerous traps in all of personal finance. We live in a world that is constantly telling us to want more, earn more, achieve more. And so we shift our goalposts. We compare ourselves to people richer than we are. We take on more risk to reach a number that keeps moving away from us. The antidote? Define what enough means to you before the world defines it for you. Not the number that will make you the richest person in the room, but the number that will give you freedom, security, and peace. That is a number worth knowing. Lesson 4. The magic of compounding. Warren Buffett's net worth is roughly $80 billion. Here is what almost no one talks about. More than 95% of that wealth was earned after his 65th birthday. He started investing at age 10. He became a millionaire at 30. But the real magic happened because he never stopped. He kept going. Decade after decade, the money compounded on itself. Morgan Housel calls compounding one of the most counterintuitive forces in the universe. Our brains are not wired to understand exponential growth. We are linear thinkers living in an exponential world. Think of a small snowball rolling down a long hill covered in snow. At first it barely grows, but as it picks up speed and collects more snow, it becomes an unstoppable force. Time is the hill. Your investments are the snowball. You don't need an extraordinary rate of return to build extraordinary wealth. You need a decent return, and you need time. That's it. Start early, stay consistent, and never interrupt the process unnecessarily. Buffett's real superpower isn't investing genius. It's that he started as a child and never stopped as an old man. His secret weapon is time. Lesson 5. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. Getting money and keeping money are two completely different skills. Getting money requires optimism, risk-taking, creativity, and bold decisions. Staying wealthy requires almost the opposite. It requires humility, caution, and the quiet fear that what you have earned could easily be taken away. Morgan Housel points to the stories of people who built enormous fortunes and then lost them. Not because of one catastrophic mistake, but because they forgot to be afraid. They assumed the future would look like the past. They took on more risk because the good times made them feel invincible. The investors and institutions that survive the long game are rarely the ones who were the most aggressive. They are the ones who were obsessed with survival. They planned for things to go wrong. They left themselves room to be wrong. The key mindset shift. Never bet so big on a single outcome, no matter how certain you are, that it threatens your ability to stay in the game. You want to be in a position to play tomorrow, and next year, and in 20 years, because the longer you stay in the game, the more compounding can work in your favor. Survival is not a boring strategy. Survival is the strategy. Lesson 6. Tails, you win. Here is a counterintuitive truth that applies to investing, business, and even creative work. Most things fail, but a small number of things succeed so spectacularly that they make up for everything else and then some. In investing, this is called tail events. The best investors in the world are wrong about individual bets all the time, but they structure their portfolios so that when a winner hits, when that one stock does 1,000%, it more than covers all the losses. Amazon built AWS as an experiment. Google built AdWords as an experiment. Apple released the iPhone without knowing it would redefine an industry. These tails, these outliers, are what make the whole portfolio worthwhile. What does this mean for you? It means you should expect failure as a normal part of investing. It means a few right decisions will matter far more than 100 mediocre ones. And it means the goal is not to be right every time. The goal is to be positioned so that when something incredible happens, you're holding it, and when something goes wrong, you survive it. Be patient, be diversified, and trust that the tails will show up. Lesson 7. Freedom is the highest dividend money can pay. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. Not a luxury car, not a big house, not a private jet. Control over your time. Morgan Housel argues this is the one thing money can truly buy that actually makes people happier: autonomy. The freedom to choose your work, your schedule, your relationships, and how you spend the hours of your life. And yet so many of us trade this freedom away without realizing it. We upgrade our lifestyle every time our income goes up. We take on financial commitments, mortgages, car payments, private school fees that lock us into a specific level of income forever. And then we wonder why, despite earning more than we ever dreamed, we still feel trapped. The way to use money to buy freedom is simple in theory, difficult in practice. Spend less than you earn and save the difference. Not to invest aggressively, not to time the market, simply to give yourself options. Because the person with options is never truly trapped. What would your life look like if you had 6 months of living expenses in the bank? A year? 3 years? Think about the decisions you could make. Think about the things you would no longer have to tolerate. That is what money is for. Lesson 8. The man in the car paradox. People buy expensive cars hoping that other people will look at them and think, that person is successful. That person is cool. I want to be like that person. But here is what actually happens. When you see someone driving a luxury car, you don't think about the driver. You imagine yourself in the driver's seat. You picture how cool you would look. Morgan Housel calls this the man in the car paradox. Nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are. We buy status symbols to earn the admiration of other people, and yet those other people are too busy thinking about themselves to give us the admiration we're seeking. This is not a criticism. It is just human nature. But once you understand it, it becomes very liberating. You stop spending money to impress people who aren't paying attention. You stop anchoring your financial decisions to an audience that doesn't exist. True respect and admiration from others does not come from what you own. It comes from who you are, how you treat people, and what you have accomplished. And those things are entirely free. Lesson 9. Wealth is what you don't see. Here's a mind-bending idea. Wealth is invisible. You can see someone's car. You can see their clothes, their house, their vacations on Instagram. But you cannot see their bank account. You cannot see their debt. You cannot see whether they are one missed paycheck away from financial ruin or sitting on a mountain of savings that could sustain them for a decade. The person in the average-looking car, living in the modest house, taking quiet vacations, they might be the wealthiest person you know. And the person who appears to have everything might be drowning in debt just to keep up the appearance. Morgan Housel makes a simple but powerful distinction. Spending money is visible. Wealth is the money not spent. Every dollar you do not spend is a dollar of future freedom, future security, and future options. The world around us constantly shows us consumption. The ads, the social media posts, the culture, all of it celebrates spending. Very little of it celebrates the quiet discipline of saving and holding. But that quiet discipline is where wealth is actually built. Not in the purchases we make, in the purchases we choose not to make. Lesson 10. Save money. Just save. You do not need a reason to save money. Morgan Housel makes this point with unusual clarity. Most financial advice tells you to save for something: retirement, a house, an emergency fund, your children's education, and those are all fine reasons. But the most powerful reason to save is simply this: to have options you cannot yet anticipate. Life is uncertain. The world changes in ways nobody predicts. The person who has savings when the unexpected happens, a job loss, a health crisis, an opportunity of a lifetime, is in a completely different position than the person who does not. Savings give you the ability to wait, to say no to things that don't serve you, to say yes to opportunities that others must pass up because they cannot afford to. And here is the best part. You don't need a high income to save. You need a gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is entirely within your control. It is perhaps the one financial variable that you have the most power over. Reduce your ego. Reduce your desire to look wealthy in front of others, and let that gap widen. Because that gap is not just money. That gap is freedom. Lesson 11. Reasonable beats rational. Mathematically, the optimal investment strategy has been worked out. The efficient portfolios have been calculated. The rational thing to do, purely by the numbers, is clear. And almost nobody does it. Because almost nobody is a rational actor when their money is on the line. Morgan Housel offers a radical reframe. Stop trying to be perfectly rational. Try instead to be reasonable. An investment strategy you can stick with, even when markets crash, even when everyone around you is panicking, even when every instinct in your body screams to sell, is worth far more than a theoretically perfect strategy you abandon at the worst possible moment. The emotional cost of volatility is real. Stress is real. Doubt is real. And if a slightly less optimal portfolio lets you sleep at night and stay invested for decades, it will outperform the perfect portfolio that you panic sold during a downturn. Know yourself. Know your fear threshold. Build a financial plan that you can emotionally sustain. Because in finance, the strategy you can actually stick to is always better than the one you can't. Lesson 12. Room for error. Every financial plan should include something that rarely shows up in financial plans: a margin of safety. Engineers build bridges designed to hold 3 times the maximum expected weight, not because they expect that load, but because they know the unexpected happens. They know they could be wrong. They build in room for error. Your financial life deserves the same respect. Morgan Housel argues that the most important part of any financial plan is the part that allows for things going wrong. That is not pessimism, that is wisdom. Because no matter how confident you are in your projections, the future has a way of humiliating confidence. Practically, this means do not invest money you cannot afford to lose. Do not assume your income will keep growing. Do not plan your retirement on the assumption that markets will deliver exactly the returns they averaged in the past. Give yourself room to be wrong, because you will be wrong sometimes. We all are. The question is whether being wrong destroys you, or whether it is just a minor setback on a long journey. Lesson 13. You will change, and that is okay. When you were 22, you had a vision of what you wanted your life to look like at 40. How accurate was that vision? Morgan Housel points out something that should profoundly change how we plan our financial lives. We are terrible at predicting what we will want in the future. Our values change. Our priorities shift. The things that felt urgent at 25 feel trivial at 45. This is called the end of history illusion. We look back and clearly see how much we changed over the past decade, and yet we assume that who we are right now is who we will always be. The financial implication is significant. Be careful about making irreversible, long-term financial commitments based on who you are today. Lock in flexibility where you can. Avoid decisions that make it catastrophically expensive to change your mind later. And when your priorities do change, when you realize that the career you chased or the lifestyle you built no longer fits who you've become, give yourself permission to adapt. The cost of sunk costs is high enough without compounding it by staying on a path that no longer serves you. Long-term planning is valuable, but humility about the future, your future self included, is priceless. Lesson 14. Nothing is free. Every financial reward comes with a price, and the price is rarely a fee on a statement. It is usually something invisible. The price of stock market returns? Volatility. Watching your portfolio fall by 30, 40, even 50% and not selling. That is the price of admission for long-term equity returns. Most people see the price and try to avoid it. They move to cash at the first sign of trouble. They pay the price without collecting the return. Morgan Housel uses the analogy of a theme park. You pay for your ticket at the entrance. You don't jump the fence to avoid the fee and expect to enjoy the ride. You pay because the experience is worth it. Market volatility is the ticket price for long-term wealth. Career uncertainty is the price for meaningful work. Social discomfort is the price for genuine relationships. Everything worth having costs something. The trick is to identify what the price is and decide clearly and deliberately whether you are willing to pay it. Stop looking for ways to get the return without paying the price. You will only fool yourself and end up paying a higher price down the road. Lesson 15. You and me, and the different games we play. Here is something that most financial advice gets completely wrong. It assumes everyone is playing the same game. A day trader playing short-term momentum and a retiree preserving capital for 30 years are not playing the same game. A venture capitalist betting on moonshots and a teacher building a pension are not playing the same game. When the day trader looks at the retiree's conservative portfolio and says, "That's leaving money on the table," they are right for their game, but devastating for the retiree's game. Morgan Housel urges us to define what game we are actually playing, and then to ignore the advice of people playing a different game, not because they are wrong in general, but because their rules do not apply to your situation. Ask yourself, what is my timeline? What is my true risk tolerance? Not the theoretical one, but the one that shows up when my portfolio drops 40%. What am I actually trying to achieve? Answer those questions honestly. Build a strategy around those answers, and stop letting people playing a different game convince you to play theirs. Final lesson. The most important thing. Morgan Housel ends his book not with a formula or a portfolio strategy. He ends it with something more honest than that, a confession. He and his wife live modestly by choice, in a house smaller than they could afford, without flashy cars, without lifestyle inflation. Not because they are frugal to a fault, but because they have defined what enough looks like for them, and they have found it gives them something no level of consumption could: control. Control over their time, control over their stress, control over who they say yes to and who they say no to. The psychology of money is not about knowing the right stocks, or the right funds, or the right economic theories. It is about understanding yourself, your fears, your desires, your relationship with uncertainty, and your definition of a life well lived. Money is a tool. It is one of the most powerful tools humanity has ever invented. But like any tool, it can build something magnificent or cause tremendous damage, depending entirely on the hands that hold it and the intentions behind it. So ask yourself these questions. What does enough look like for me? What am I willing to sacrifice, and what am I not? What kind of life do I actually want? Not the life that looks impressive, but the life that feels fulfilling. Answer those questions honestly, and then let your money serve those answers. That is the psychology of money, and that is where financial wisdom truly begins. Thank you for listening to this summary of The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Take care of your mind, take care of your money, and remember, the goal was never to be the richest person in the room. The goal is to sleep well at night and to live a life that is entirely, authentically yours.